And here we go. So thank you guys for coming on. I got Alex and soon to be Fata here. How's it going?
Hello.
All right. So what do you think about that last match? Those two games you had versus Pen Gaming there.
Well, it was, kinda easy match for us. We always had like a good feeling that we could win the game and push. We had some dumb fights, so it was a little bit harder in the end, but yeah, it was okay. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the call now as well, by the way. Sorry, missed it.
Sure. So what do you think about the game, Fata? Those two.
I guess in both games we had better picks, somewhat easier lanes, especially in the first game where we had them totally outlaned in a way. That made both of the games pretty easy. The second game got a bit harder towards mid game because we threw away some fights and fought bad. Like for example, I got my RP stolen several times, which turned the fight, which was a bad thing, but in the end it was enough to take both games home.
Cool. So, as far as that game too, there were some certain points in time where you guys seemed to be a little bit overconfident, just kind of playing around a little bit here and there. And it's obviously Dota's game, so that's all fun. But was there a point in time after those two nearly full team wipes? Did you feel that there was a point where you actually might lose the game due to overconfidence?
I had it in mind a bit, but I thought that if we get our stuff together, then it should be fine if we concentrate. And then the call and like teams became just guys, come on, let's end this stuff. Let's not, like play around too much, and then it just ended with some good fights, and which led to the winning of the game.
Yeah, obviously. And so you guys felt like you had a draft advantage going on into both of the games. Would you extrapolate that a little bit for me? Was there some mistakes that you feel they made in the draft? I know that Lone Druid versus Anti-Mage was a pretty clear-cut victory and actually, while I'm at it, why don't you go ahead and pronounce his name for me so I can hear it rather than see it?
Quoiqua.
Okay. So I'll have to listen to that on the VOD a couple times over, but I'll get it, and that's very helpful compared to you guys that like you were spamming out in chat like 3 different ways and just wasn't connecting. But either way, so he did well on the Lone Druid and versus Anti-Mage. That's a pretty solid matchup for him. Other than that, what advantages did you see in your drafting phase?
Like for example, also the Bat Rider against Nyx Assassin. It's a pretty easy lane for the Bat Rider, as Nyx at a point couldn't even reach the creeps. He was just standing back and sometimes banning mana drain, which I could just counter with a bit of bottle crowing. So they've already lost 2 lanes and then was on their offensive tri lane to win, which is pretty hard against the Visage. Like against the Visage it's pretty hard to win an offensive tri lane, especially with a Bat Rider having an easy time mid and being capable of going for all the runes. And for example, I got haste runes, and they just can't go on top lane if they know I have a haste rune and a TP. They just can't go in, so Void gets a whole lot of free space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that obviously, that was all about creating space and making sure that Black could get to the point that he intended to be able to just, not 1v5, but obviously the carry as that was intended. That's generally your style, as far as I can tell, so that worked out very, very nicely. But in Game 2, he didn't even hit 1,000 gold per minute on Alchemist. How do you feel about
that? It's not having 1,000 GPM on Alchemist is pretty sad. He's probably gonna be kicked now, and it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, you have to take actions against something like that. What was his GPM actually?
It was like 950, somewhere around there, so it was close.
Oh my god. Nah, well, close is not good enough. Yeah, that's terrible. I think we're gonna replace him.
Yeah, we will get Henry. He's better carry anyway.
There you go. Well, everybody heard it here first. So roster changes.
News incoming.
And we thought the Kurokai change was the end. By the way, as far as that goes, how's it going since Kurokai did end up dropping out? I've seen a couple of your matches since then. I think I've even asked you guys once, but just how has the team been forming to try to create a new synergy with the new roster?
It's obviously initially a quality change, just from the player itself, just from the skill itself, and also the communication lacks a bit now. But I think that will settle with time. And I mean, we have been doing quite decently, so The results show that we can still beat top teams, that we can still play on the top, and we hopefully get even better and stay at the top for a long time.
Yeah, so do you think that you'll be able to overcome and kind of get to the point where you were with Kurokai and then kind of surpass that? Is that, obviously that's your objective, but how feasible do you think that is right now?
I think that's definitely doable. I think we can do that. I'm quite certain of it.
Okay, cool. So, along the lines of future intentions, are you guys planning on any cool different builds? Maybe some of the changes in the future, like obviously the patch that's going to be coming out shortly, and then also we see the meta shifting where like unorthodox picks. Alchemist is unorthodox in of himself, but the Spectre worked out pretty well in No Tyrant versus Dignitas the other day. Do you see that those kind of heroes kind of becoming more possible for you guys, or?
Definitely, I think the version still holds a lot of heroes with potential. And those should definitely be tried out. We already experimented, as you might have seen in the past. We experimented with Zeus and Official. For example, against Fnatic, we played it twice. We lost one and we won one. That was, I think, one was Raidcore and the other one was Star Ladder. If you care about those matches, and like something like that it showed potential. And I think people should always try something like Warlock, for example. You mentioned Spectre, like Warlock kind of went with her. When Spectre first appeared, Warlock was picked with her. I think Dignitas played it first. And like beforehand, you never saw those heroes. And it's been like this in Dota for a while, that sometimes it's still the same version, but suddenly new heroes appear and become top picks. And I think there's still something left in the current version, and people should look for it, definitely.
There's also like, if there's a new style like Warlock, Spectre, teams need to figure out how to counter it best.
Exactly.
So you can have a little space, like 2 or 3 days, and in this time you can play this strat and you can surprise many teams and kill them in like a best of one. Just like kill one game.
Like maybe you saw, I might have mentioned it in the previous interview, I don't know, like the Gyrocopter mid that we did back in January, which worked out really, really, really well back then. But then teams adjusted to it, put a lot of pressure on mid, even did mid pulls, for example. They came back at that time, and then it was just not possible to pick him in mid anymore because he would just get ganked and go 0-4. So. And because he's low range, he's got no escape mechanism and stuff like that, which made it pretty hard to lane in mid. But initially, it worked out wonders, and it wasn't even used before. So, that's a good example for something that's the only version, and that, it just has to be found out. And then usually it's countered after a while. But that while can get you a lot of wins. Like we had like 10 wins with him, I think, in January. Oh man, in January we didn't lose a single match with Gyrocopter.
Yeah. So would you rate Gyrocopter right now? Is he like, I didn't see him much in the draft at all. I mean, he occasionally made a reference in a ban, but do you guys rate him as highly as you did? I presume not, based on the pressure that teams are putting out.
In middle or generally?
I guess, yeah, in general. Obviously, you mentioned what you thought about his mid scenario, but just in general as a pick.
I think Gyro is a really balanced hero right now. He's always, no matter how fat he gets, he's always killable in a way, because he's or like especially early game and mid game, he's really, really squishy, and that's why he's counterable quite easily. As a carry, he's low ranged on lane. Like the only thing that gives him range is the flag cannon, which is a factor, but still, in some situations he has to be close to the enemy. The only thing which I hate about Gyrocopter is that Rapier makes him really strong and makes the game really random in it, and you can just
lose one team fight,
lose exactly, and that's what I really dislike about the hero. But other than that, I think he's like really one of the most balanced heroes right now.
Yeah. So that's definitely something to keep in mind for the future. As far as adapting your style even further, other heroes are coming on in, like Timbersaw. What do you guys think about him? Do you think he's viable competitively? And also the Tranquil Boots changes. Would that change how Black has to play heroes like Phantom Lancer and such?
I think Timbersaw is not that strong as of now. I mean, I've only played him in pubs so far, and I mean, I've been feeding. I've been feeding a whole lot. I've got like 0 4-stats or so. So that's my personal opinion on Timbersaw. He's not that strong in my opinion. Nah, don't think that from our side we're not gonna see him, I guess, because he's just, I don't know what is it, but he feels so squishy. Like once he goes in and he's still mana dependent, he dies, even though he's got this passive, but it doesn't seem to do a lot for me. Maybe I'm just bad with him, I don't know. But yeah.
It's also like you can't really lane him that well. He's not a support, he's not a carry, he's not a mid laner, so the only thing he could probably go is off lane. And on off lane he loses to most one-on-one heroes like Scylla, Bone, etc. He will get owned, I think. And it's hard for him. I mean, if he can escape a little bit on offlane, but it's hard for him to go forward and get some experience.
Yeah, and a lot of teams are kind of running a lot of very Orchid-oriented heroes, like even picking up like Nature's Prophet and throwing an Orchid on him, which would be rather uncommon previously. I mean, it's still something that he looks into, but we see like single Orchid and dual Orchid compositions a lot. Does that force a change in styles? Obviously, Timbersaw would be drastically effective if he was going up against that, but are there other heroes that you are less willing to pick when you're up against certain teams and certain compositions?
It's pretty hard to say, to be honest, and we might see, because a hero can always just get a quick BKB, for example, and counter the Orchid with that fully, like completely. It's useless then, it only gives you a bunch of damage, but you just get disabled. The Orchid holder just gets disabled then, and certain heroes, I mean, I don't think so, just because of the fact that I've just mentioned that you can just buy BKB. I think that's how you can sum it up pretty nicely.
So one of the viewers was wondering, what was the reasoning behind the Alchemist pick? I mean, obviously we saw how great of an effect it was with black farming away and maxing that greed so quickly, but was there any specific mindset behind that other than, I guess, concoction plus reverse polarity?
To be honest, I wasn't even there when Black was picking it. I think it was kinda his own thing that he wanted to play Alchemist and thought it was good. So it's quite hard for me to answer here. I'm gonna take a look at the picks now and see if it had any special counter.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what you can say is that their heroes were quite squishy, and he probably just wanted to take advantage of the Shadow Blade and kill them. Like Anti-Mage dies with against the max channeled stun. So does pretty much every one of them, so that could be a reason behind it. Obviously, Empower plus LP with an Alchemist hitting for I don't know what damage, and like massive damage with massive attack speed could be a reason.
Sure.
So yeah.
So how's the drafting for Black right now working out? Is he also calling the shots in game, or who's kind of focusing on that?
I can't even really answer that question. It's sometimes a mix of everyone. He doesn't do the calls. Yeah. I think he's one of the most quiet guys. But sometimes it's a mix. I might do most. I don't even notice because I'm not really aware. I just talk in game. I might do the most. The supporters do some. But that's what I mean with the communication at the moment. It's pretty random. Yeah, we still have to get used to like the lack of Kurokai who does all the calls. So it's kind of
used to do it before, and now we have to adapt to the fact that we have to do it on our own. Exactly. Before we mostly listen to him, and so now first we need to decide, and then we need to talk. That's like two new things we have to do in a way.
Definitely. So it's allowing your team to kind of change your style, your communication a little bit. And do you think that's for the better, or?
It is.
We have to make the best out of it, and
I think it's
in a way really good. Yeah, we have to be take more responsibility for our own instead of just listen and need to think more. It's good.
Exactly,
you
because
grow as a player if you do so, instead of just listen and do what some other guy says just because he's smart.
Yeah, that was like actually a problem in the Mouse of Kuro, that people sometimes like were lazy to think for themselves, and that kind of like the Captain Kurokai think for them. And with his departure, that's actually a chance for them to, or for us, to grow as players, to grow as like own thinking minds a bit, each and every one of us, and don't be so lazy to just listen to the captain and actually think for our own. And that's what I think actually helps us in a way.
Yeah, no, obviously it shows player growth and allows you to move in towards the future with a little bit better perspective on a lot of things. So, moving into future time periods, looking at teams that you're worried to go up against, is there any team that you feel is the biggest threat in the Premier League and in the scene in general? And then how do you guys feel as far as moving in towards the international, what you're going to be looking at?
In Europe, I don't really fear any team because every team is easily beatable. As of now, there's no team that has like a major presence that doesn't ever lose a game. Obviously, there are stronger teams, but all in all, everyone can beat everyone, and we know that. Like many people would say, Fnatic is one of the strongest right now, but they are beatable. We've beaten them many times in the past. They have beaten us as well. Still not a reason to have a major threat. Like for example. Against IG. Now, if I would go to the international, my biggest fear would be of IG, because their play is just so coordinated and so stable, and like there are only minor mistakes, and it's so hard to play against that. And you don't have that in Europe.
Yeah, you have the feeling like if you see games from IG, it's just like they only lose because they got cheesed by Navi or cheesed by LGD International in one game. It's just strategy-wise where you can outdraft them in a way and
you have to
play
surprise
cheese strategies. Yeah.
You have to put them out of their comfort zone in a way. That's for me right now. That's the only way to beat them, because in a normal with standard picks, they just know exactly how to play against it, and then you just can't do anything because they're so damn good skill-wise, in my opinion.
Now, this is a question with a lot of kind of forethought looking into the future, but one thing I noticed, like at least the month prior to International, a lot of people are saving up pocket strats and kind of doing private scrims that they don't do in official games. They kind of tone down their official play a little bit and try to make sure they have a lot of those surprise tactics you were just referencing. How I was talking a month as a general bar, but how far in advance do you think you kind of start doing that as a team?
Not now, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty, like, probably at the boot camps beforehand, before the big tournament, is probably the time where you get a scrimming partner where you try out stuff, because you have to have someone, you have to have someone that doesn't leak it in a way. So if you scrim against someone, if you scrim against some random guy, he sees the strategy. Oh man, that works out wonders. We're gonna use that in our next scrim against some other guy. And these guys are gonna think the same thing. And then you just have a strategy that just ends up being the new meta game or whatever if it's really good. So yeah, that's usually... So in a boot camp with a training partner beforehand would probably be the best time to work on those pocket strategies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's obviously that's your intention. You guys have plans for that in the future, and that's all great. Is there anything else you guys want to cover before you go? Any shout-outs you want to give?
To Mouseboard, the sponsors. Thank you, Tortek, Razer, and Guy. And other than DotaSource.de.
Yeah.
Always a good shout-out. And other than that,
And
I think I'm fine.
Shout-out to my favorite League of Legends player, René Kebab Werner. I think that's it.
Nice. Well, great to be able to have you guys on, Alex and Fata, and good luck in your future games. Congratulations on your win versus Pain Gaming here. So great to have you on, and you guys have a good one.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the interview. Bye-bye.